This is Kristin.
And I'm Steve, and you are listening to Cycling Together, a show all about things bikes, riding, and riding together.
We're on location.
On location in Duxbury, Massachusetts.
Very good. I know that's a hard word for you.
It's a very hard
Massachusetts. And we have been staying at our friend's house, Alex and Jason, and they're actually going to be coming on the show
Momentarily,
to talk about cycling as a couple, cycling friends. They have been our closest cycling friends for many years now,
for a long time,
which is awesome to have. And yeah, we've spent the long weekend here. They're also game to let us camp in their front yard.
Which we were talking, it might be one of the better places we've ever parked a van.
5 stars.
Yes.
5 stars for this camping area. Excellent location.
We are looking out on the Bluefish River tidal inlet, which has like an 8-foot tidal range. So right now we're just coming under high tide, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful
gorgeous
out here.
There's some pictures on our Insta, and I'm sure if you for anyone who's listening and doesn't watch on YouTube, I do often throw photos or video on top, as interesting as the two of us are to watch, on top. So there will definitely be some pictures from this glorious view. But while our friend is caffeinating and getting ready for his moment in the sun, I wanted to talk about a conversation that I had during our most recent women's ride. So we host a series of women's mountain bike rides every 2 weeks. And what I love about riding with women is how they will ask questions and we end up breaking down information in a way that I have never in another kind of ride done. So the conversation we had was, one of our ride leaders was saying to one of the women, you should think about keeping your pedals level, and then as you're going downhill, stand on your pedals over your saddle. To which the riders were then, well, how often? When do you do that? How often do you do it? What percentage, this was, I think, an actual question, what percentage of time are you out of your saddle on any given mountain bike ride? Which we went, I don't know. Right? Have you ever thought about it?
No, not really. No, I've never thought about it, but it's a lot.
It's a lot. And so what we were doing is, as I was riding, I would call out, standing, every time I stood on my pedals. And that's when I realized we originally
that got
thought
annoying.
It wasn't annoying. It wasn't annoying. It was helpful and useful because it helped them understand how often I was standing. And for me, even, I was like, oh, I thought it was 50%. I'm thinking it's like 80%. Like, you're out of your saddle a lot. And I've been thinking about it since then. Even riding yesterday, I was thinking about it.
I suppose I do think about it sometimes if I'm riding with more of that beginner, intermediate, maybe level rider, and I see them in front of me, and I'm like, why are they still on their saddle here?
Yes.
Right. And that's when I guess I notice it.
Right.
Yep.
So let's talk about why I wanted to bring this up. Let's talk about why we get out of our saddle. So the number one reason is we become part of the suspension.
Your body becomes part of the suspension. Yep. Your legs do.
Yeah. I was hoping you would talk about that more.
Oh, sure. I could do that. Sure. Okay.
Right? Because you're loose. So your legs are moving, your arms are moving.
Yes, your body is able to adapt dynamically to the terrain and the bumps and everything else instantaneously, basically, where you cannot quite do the same thing while you're on your saddle.
Right.
And then you're not getting, there's no bucking, there's no bumping, there's no button to the saddle issues. Over the course of a ride, you would become more uncomfortable sitting on the saddle if you were always getting bumped.
And we were talking about during this, the fact that when you get out of the saddle and you're just by nature going to put more weight over your feet.
A little bit more back.
So that's going to push you a little back, which will help you compensate, in particular in an area that you don't know maybe as well. So I was thinking about this yesterday. We were riding here in Duxbury, don't know the trails as well. And so I found that even if I wasn't, maybe I would normally be in the saddle, I was up because I just didn't know what was around the corner. And if I was out of my saddle, in fact, what happened to me is I came around a corner and I went a little wide and I ran into a big rooty bermy thing, which stopped me, hard.
Yes.
But because I was standing, I did knock my knee, but I didn't fling myself over the saddle and over the handlebars.
Yeah.
And that was by nature of being
You're less likely to stuff the front tire.
Yes.
Right. And so if you're talking about, and this is usually on flat to slight down,
yes.
Yeah, descending a little bit, right? So you don't necessarily need to pedal. That's what we're kind of talking about here. And if you're going very slow, a lot of times you can sit.
Yes.
There becomes a certain speed point at which you just, I guess for us, we just naturally stand.
Yes.
Right? It is. You just, that's what your body says, I need to stand up. And this is where I tend to see beginner riders more stay seated.
Yes.
And I can see them going over all these bumps and while they're seated. I'm like, you don't have as much control. You can't move around your bike as much. You can't shift your weight back as easy.
Yeah.
And this is where.
And I realized yesterday as we were riding, and I was thinking about this, that it's not probably always obvious when you're behind me that I'm out of my saddle, because I may just come up a little bit.
Yes.
It's not it's not a big up. It's just that I've just put a little bit of air between me and my saddle.
Yes.
Especially if I'm going over it. There was a big rooty section. I think we have video of it, so I'll try to throw it in, where I was gliding and pedaling, and I was ever so slightly out of my saddle, which gave me a little more control. You know, it helps with the balance too, the front back balance, because that was one thing we were talking about with the women is like, and climbing, you're probably out of it a lot. And I was like, I'm not.
Oh no,
that's
actually way more seated.
That's what I said. I was like, actually, no. Again, thinking about it, I was not. There are times like yesterday where there would be a couple poppy things where I'd be out of the saddle, but most of the time I was seated for the climb. But I was saying to them, the minute my bike starts just rolling, I'm almost always out of my saddle. Just a little bit.
And so the more power you put into the pedals, the more actually you're unweighting your butt off the saddle. And so sometimes through, say, you're coming up and you're going through a rooty section, all right, very rooty, but I'm not going downhill. I will actually, there's sometimes where I'm putting more power into the pedals, which actually unweights myself off the saddle. So I am seated in this section,
right?
But I am not getting bumped by the saddle going up and down in the same way, because I have really unweighted it through the fact that I'm putting power into the pedals.
And I was thinking about this too, because one of them was saying that she had trouble standing and pedaling. And I think some of that, what I didn't say to her, but I will next time, maybe that she doesn't realize that actually when you stand, you're probably going to be in a harder gear than you would be if you were sitting.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. But that's getting to know what is the right combination of weight and gear and balance front and back. And but it was just interesting when you some of the things that becomes unconscious.
There's also maybe something, and this could be a teaching thing, what we do with somebody when you're talking about doing some skills Saturdays, but there are times where I'm standing in the saddle. We're not talking about a bumpy descent or even going all that fast down a descent. It is more at a cruising pace where I don't have to pedal, so I'm up on the pedal standing, and my legs are locked. And the reason my legs are locked is because when your legs are straight, you are no longer supporting your weight. So you're almost resting while you're standing. And that might seem counterintuitive to people. Oh, my legs are locked. I'm on a mountain bike. But no, that's a skill of riding.
Yeah, it's just the idea that you are active on the bike. It's not like taking your bike out onto a rail trail and just pedaling. When you're on a mountain bike, you're up and you're off, you're aside, you're back and forth. It is that's why it's so dynamic. Active, dynamic.
And that's why when like a bike fitter, you're sort of looking for that millimeter-ish precision on your saddle height on a road bike, even though, of course, your saddle height needs technically change even over the course of the same ride, or it gets hot outside, or you wear different shoes that day. So millimeter precision is something that's not truly accurate. But you don't need it. You don't need quite that same sort of millimeter precision for your saddle height on a mountain bike,
right? Because you're
so
constantly moving. Plus, you have the dropper in play. Plus this. So, anyway, that's what I love riding with the women, because we really do. We do break stuff like this down in a way that I don't see elsewhere. Anyway, we're going to take a break. We're going to check on our friends, and we're going to bring them back for their interview.
Okay.
All right, we're back, and we are here with our best friends in cycling and life. Best friends! Alex and Jason, welcome to Cycling Together.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Good morning.
Thank you for letting us sleep in your front yard. All right, so
Anytime.
we are going to be you're both cyclists, you're both athletes. We're going to be talking about how you got into cycling, but let's start with how we met. Ooh.
Do you know?
Make sure our memories match.
Okay, let's make sure our memories match.
Yes, how do you think we met?
Do you remember it as we met and then introduced our husbands?
Yes.
I don't remember it that way. I met your husband before I met you.
Yes, at a Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, that's
how I
right.
remember it.
At a Dunkin'
because-
Donuts.
Yeah, because they were setting up a course together.
Because
There
we
was
were
a
setting
course-
up the
How did-
Cycling the Wave
For the women.
fundraiser for,
Oh
I
my
can't
gosh,
remember
I
what
have
it was.
No
That's right.
memory of you being attached
And
to
I
that.
don't remember how we got your name.
I don't either.
But you were involved.
But I was
wasn't
told
REI
that there was
involved?
Yeah, but I don't think...
And you had actually had a course at that point, and then you were just sort of looking for feedback on what I thought about it.
Yeah,
I believe.
we mapped out a course,
Yes.
which I think we probably borrowed from another ride.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
think it was something that we saw online.
We also had-
And then somehow I got your name,
Yeah.
and we met at the Dunkin' Donuts in Ashland, and you looked at the
You
course
were
for
meeting
us.
another woman at a Dunkin' Donuts
I
without
know.
me knowing.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I don't think I figured that out until something happened, and I was going to enter your phone number in my phone, and I was like, wait a minute, I have you in my phone already. And that's how I figured. I'm like, oh, you're that guy.
Because I did that ride.
You did that ride?
I did. Yeah, my a couple of girlfriends. Because of course he helped
Yes,
with the
you did
course.
that ride with Nancy.
Right.
And he was no with
Oh, yeah, because Nancy
Michelle.
Cantor did
Oh, with
that ride
Michelle.
also.
with
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
and I think our neighbor up the way who was doing the PMC, she also did it
Yeah.
with. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, in my memory, we met at softball because
Yes.
our girls were playing softball together, even though they're a year.
They were a year.
They're a year apart, but it was a
Yeah,
multi-grade.
Yeah, it was a summer league. Or it was
Summer
a
league.
End of the season league that they played in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
think
need
it,
to
I,
get your
I,
microphone closer.
I think that
to
was.
you.
I think it was just the spring town league.
I don't know. There was lots of cheering. I hated softball for this sport, but I loved it for
It was
the
very
cheering.
long and cold in April when I
The
first
games
started.
just went on forever. That's when I was like, I like the people we met, but you should try lacrosse.
Yes. Can it be just an hour? Can we time it? An
Right.
hour, we're done? Yeah.
So
Okay.
we met. So you had already met Steve, but didn't know it.
Yes.
Right.
Well, because I don't think I had even seen you or remembered seeing you at softball.
Right. And then how did we connect that you were doing triathlon and I was doing triathlon? Did we figure that out at some
Is this when you got into
conversations?
triathlon, Kristen?
I was already in it.
You were already in it.
I
Because
had
you had
already
definitely done
started
the season
sprint.
opener with, you had a little tri group
Yes.
that you had done in the Steve the Bike Guy kits.
Yeah, because
Okay.
because you were servicing triathlons.
Yep.
So then I started doing the sprint triathlon. Since you weren't getting paid, I was like, might as well get a free entry.
I feel like the cycling connection was much slower than this. I think that we were
Yes.
just the yelly, enthusiastic parents on
Yes.
the bleachers, and you had a camera,
I did have a camera.
and you were
I
taking
took
all the good pictures. I
good
think that's
pic-
how
where
we
you're
met.
like, well, like her, she takes good pictures of my kid with a
Right.
bat.
And then I think we discussed that we were both doing triathlons.
Yes, somebody must have been wearing something that said a triathlon because that's what you did.
That
You
probably
wore,
did.
Didn't
you
you
wore
that-
tri stuff.
volunteer? I think I helped you at one of the.
But I
That
think
would have
sure,
been-
but that was after we met, though.
That
That
would have been
was
after because we then had the conversation where we said, "Oh, you had a conversation with Jason.
Yes.
Where you said what?
I think I said Kristen's husband is also a cyclist. And then you said, Do you know what he rides?
Well, I kind of get it because
does he ride a trike, right?
Right. Is he riding a bike?
With a basket and he gets his groceries in it? Or what kind of cyclist is he?
When he ends his ride, does he put down the kickstand?
Right.
Well, we had a cycling group in town, and like their big thing was they stopped for ice cream. So it wasn't necessarily what you would say your crew. Yes, they come and have ice cream outside of our shop. You know, it's all the Ashland cycling. That's what I'm saying. Like if you said to someone,
yes,
he's a cyclist, and you said Ashland, that doesn't necessarily mean a cyclist that I would want to ride with.
Yeah, I think he was really saying, does he wear Lycra?
Yes.
Yes.
There we go.
I think that's actually the distinction.
Does he wear Lycra?
Is he a mammal?
But you had said to me, because I remember you and I had looked on, remember, mapmyride.com?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been riding a little bit here and there and everywhere. And we went on that to find a course that was a loop, that was flat, I remember there was the Ashland Triathlon, and we were trying to stay away from some of that course because that could be hilly. And you said, I'm actually meeting with a guy who's a cyclist, and we're going to go over the course together.
That was for that race.
Yeah,
and
for
I'm
Cycle for Life.
thinking, here's some 50-something-year-old fat guy.
That's not nice.
Who I am today. But anyways, I'm thinking, and he's out, doing 30 miles in 3 hours.
Right.
Kind of rider. And then I think it was at a softball game.
It was a softball game.
It was a softball game.
He's younger than I am. He's fitter than I am.
Well, because
I maybe should shut my mouth.
because Steve rode to the softball game. I have a photo from this day.
Yes.
And I think I had a bike. I think I had a giant cross bike that I had just put
honestly,
together.
I think it was. Had you started doing cross yet? Because
No.
I think this was a conversation.
I had my
because I think
giant
it was
cross bike.
you were thinking about cross,
Yes.
and you had done cross races, and I think that was actually the conversation. I think it was like, well, my husband does cross, and I think I was like, Kristen's husband has a bike, would like to do cross, and then it was like, okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
I think
I had-
actually, I think it was cyclocross was the first place where it got connected.
Where they
the two
started
of
to
you.
connect. And then
Yes.
you started to go to races together.
Well, it's because of Jason that I did my first race.
Yes.
Was that
Right.
Shed Park? Was
Nope.
that?
So
No.
it was Lancaster.
Yes.
Oh.
And we had gone to your cousin's wedding, and we left early because Jason said, you really should come do this race. And we left. That was in New Hampshire. And
That was
we
a good
left
excuse.
For the record, the wedding was over. It was the next day.
It was the next
Right,
day. It was the
right.
next Sunday. The
We
wedding was
didn't
on
stay for,
Saturday.
like,
We left,
brunch.
but we left early on Sunday
Yes.
so that we could get to
Meet
the
me
race
there.
and do the race.
Yeah. We were like, we got to
Which is
leave the
when you should have
reception. We
realized
got to
you never
go.
listened to me.
That's right. And then, okay, so you started racing together.
Yes.
We watched a season of them
Do
racing.
we even know what year that was?
We could look at cross results, but I'm going to
let's-
say
no,
20,
we don't do that anymore.
2014, 2013?
Sure.
2013.
Okay.
2013?
We'll test
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
So then,
And you guys came as moral support
and we
did
said,
nothing
this
but
is
make fun of us.
so stupid.
Oh, we're like,
okay,
never,
by the way, that's
ever.
what you do at cross
That's true.
races. We were
Well,
just
when you
doing.
don't
We were
know
heckling.
what's
We were
going
heckling.
on,
We were heckling.
It's a stupid sport. And then when you realize what's going on,
We said, we're not doing this ever. This is so stupid.
Yeah.
We're going to do, because we were doing sprint. We were doing our sprint
Yes.
triathlons. You had joined Team Betty, and you encouraged me to
Yes.
apply. And I got on the team the next year, and then this one saw pictures of the other team members, including the one who was doing a headstand just on her head, no
Oh,
hands.
beautiful.
And he said, how the hell did you get on this team? I was like, I don't know.
Because you're awesome.
and then it was around that time we then thought,
No, it
Why
took,
did
it,
we
it took
decide to
longer.
do
It took much.
No.
No. This is how this happened. So we
Okay.
watched them at Shed Park, and
Yep.
it was cold. I remember sitting in the car.
I have
and
pictures
then,
from
and then
this too.
you
Yep.
and Nancy started a text thread about how we were going to become Knights of Sufferlandria. That was our next venture.
Oh, my gosh.
Right.
And
Well,
I was
wait a
like,
minute.
I don't know what this is. And then you said you get a T-shirt or something. I'm like, I'm in.
I'm into the
Wait a minute.
T-shirt.
I
Yeah.
feel like that's a little backwards.
That was a low bar.
Didn't we
No,
meet
you were not
Nancy?
crossing.
Oh, we met Nancy through triathlon.
No.
Oh, wait a no.
we met Nancy through cross because
I met Nancy.
You met Nancy.
Yes.
Because of cyclocross. We used to do that.
Oh, maybe.
Where was that, Steve? Was it down in Rhode Island? They had it at night on like a Wednesday night.
No,
Yes.
No, it
yes,
wasn't.
it was. That's right.
It was
in
practice.
It was in Woonsocket, I believe.
It was just practice.
Just practice.
Yes.
Yep.
At somebody's farm.
No, it was like baseball field,
Oh,
and
okay.
it was a whole
It was
recreation
cool.
complex.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Nancy was showing up to do that, so it was you, Mark, and myself
Yep.
that were doing those.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
then you
also,
met Nancy, and then we started meeting Nancy at cyclocross races.
but then Mark kept texting me like, "You have to
showing up.
meet
You have to meet
Nancy.
Nancy. She's a
I love her.
powerhouse.
She's a
She's- yeah.
powerhouse.
Yeah.
She does triathlons
Mm.
and stuff like that." So
Yeah.
somehow,
And then I think
We
we
knew
introduced
Nancy-
you guys at a race
no, but except for I feel like
because Nancy was doing a lot of races at that point. In
no,
time.
but I think the order's wrong.
The order's a little wrong. So we met Nancy. She definitely started before us because she tells us the
Oh,
story
yes.
of how she
Nobody
was
passes
upside
Nancy
down.
Gomes.
No,
Being upside down on
no,
her back?
that wasn't the one either. It was that she was doing a race and she had her GoPro on and she can hear herself muttering, I thought I was in good shape. Because she is, but she's triathlete, and it's one of those like it's
Very
totally
different race.
different.
Okay, so then maybe we had just finished racing at Lowell, and then that's when that whole other thread started. That's a whole other.
because I think we really met Nancy at Helen.
So that's
Wyman's.
how that started. I think we were reading the races and it said high tea with Helen, and
Yes.
I honestly think you might have been down here, but I think I actually thought there was going to be tea.
And not that it was a
I don't know,
cross clinic
a
for the
British
British.
cyclocross champion. I could see there being a tea.
I honestly thought I'm like, what a great idea! A little
Okay.
cyclocross, and we'll have tea.
I'm off tea.
So my first race, according
Okay.
to cross results, was
It's got to be that Lancaster.
2014.
Okay.
No, my first races for cyclocross was when Steve said you should sign up for Gloucester
Yes.
Crossfest, KMC Crossfest, and in Providence.
You had to do the Holy Week.
and
Night
midnight
weasels.
and night
Night weasels.
no
In between.
midnight ride
Midnight ride.
night
Oh, okay.
night weasels was different, and so I signed up for all three, and then I said about a week before, wait a minute, what does Holy Week of Cyclocross mean? And he
Yes.
was like, oh yeah, this is like the week. It starts with Gloucester, and then we did.
Yep.
Then you had the clinic with Helen, and then you did the midnight ride the next day, and then Providence.
It was the Helen midnight ride, then Gloucester, because I hurt myself at midnight ride.
Okay, that's
And
possible.
then,
Yeah, this. Anyway, the point was, I think that's where we really connected with Nancy.
Okay.
Was 2014.
I think that feels accurate.
And I remember you being like, "Oh, great! Now that the women are involved, we're going to have to take care of 2 bikes."
Well, I remember Steve and I walking in the dark in the parking lot in Lancaster to where you guys had parked because you guys had done high tea with Helen's. You had great
Right.
parking.
Oh, we did.
So
Right.
you guys were walking ahead of us. Both of us were pushing your bikes. And I looked at Steve and I said something to the effect of, "Oh, great. We're now their pit bitches."
That sounds right.
And the two of you are out in front of us talking about how awesome it was and everything like that. And it was like, okay, we have lost our independence.
I mean, you lost it so much that we gave you kits. We
Exactly,
got
yes,
a full
yes.
with our awkward family picture of
Yes.
the 4 of us in our full kits before you and
Well,
I had
we got
ever-
the skin
Wait,
suits.
even
We got the
right.
I was
cyclocross
literally
skin
still
suits.
crying when I rode on grass.
Exactly. Yes, and there was that
Yes.
where I was riding with you and you were like, "Why are you comfortable on grass?"
Yes.
And I said, "Oh my gosh, I used to mountain bike."
Right.
Because that's
Right.
how we had started, but I hadn't mountain biked
Right.
in a decade.
Well, Alex
right?
had a mountain bike at that point in
I
time
had-
that she
I
was
actually-
using to do triathlons.
That's true. That's also true.
That was
Yeah,
her
I did have a
mountain
mountain bike, but it
experience.
only
Oh,
went
you
on
were
asphalt.
one of those who were
Well,
using a
I
mountain bike
was.
to do a triathlon.
Her first sprint triathlon,
Yeah.
Yes.
she had the mountain bike, and I put the balloon on it so she could find it at the transition.
Oh.
Yes.
All right.
With
and
the
I
knobby
did.
tires?
Yes. Oh, no.
No, I
we
put
slits.
slips
Oh,
on.
okay. All right.
yeah.
Well, at least you did that.
All right.
I was
so
fast on the downhill.
You were in what do they call that? Like hybrid village.
Yes.
Like there was a place where
The
all
pile,
the
the
hybrids
bike- But
she did have her
that
helmet
had
on right.
because they wouldn't fit
Yep.
into the she had her helmet
Yes,
on right.
that's
That is
true.
good. They wouldn't fit into the bike stands, or they had or they had kickstands.
Yes.
Okay, well, that actually brings us to why we're talking today, which how I realized I have no idea how either of you started cycling or who started all of this.
Right. Like how did
like, I have no
before
idea.
I met you, Jason, how were you already to that point of being in Lycra and riding your road all the time with Mark and
Yes.
doing cyclocross races?
Okay,
Right.
so my biking started.
Way back in the
Yeah, well, I mean, I obviously was a little kid and always had a bicycle, and then I bought a Centurion touring bike from a friend of mine because I had signed up for a triathlon that was here in Duxbury. It was called the Surf, Pedal, and Trot. You windsurfed.
Oh, okay, that's how they got you.
No, excuse me. First you rode your bike, then you windsurfed, and then you ran. And I was a strong windsurfer, and I had trained on running, but I didn't train on biking. So the first year I was trashed. And we did it for probably 4 years. And then I
How old were you, would you say, at this?
19.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I just started riding my bike for the next year, and I was like, this is fun. I really enjoy this. And then all of a sudden, other things started to disappear, and cycling became what I did. I stopped windsurfing, and I got really into cycling, and then I bought my first mountain bike, my GT, and got into mountain biking. And then I moved from Duxbury to Tucson, and I brought both my bikes with me.
Oh, he's just like you.
I took a triathlon course at school.
For credit.
Wait,
For credit.
a class?
credit.
You took a
For
triathlon
credit.
class?
It was a triathlon training class, and found out that my triathlon experience was not going to be anything other than just my best for me because I'm not a good swimmer.
Well, I was going to say you didn't swim in any of
I
those
wasn't a good swimmer.
windsurfing.
No,
they
I
didn't
found
have
out they didn't
have a lot of
windsurfing.
windsurfing
Yes.
options.
And doing
You're
it
like,
with the
"Can I
life
go
preserver
swimming?"
on
It's
is not.
stupid.
It's not.
Yeah, and
good.
unfortunately, Iron Man didn't take up windsurfing instead of
No,
swimming.
they didn't.
Right.
They
Yeah.
didn't. They didn't.
That would've
But
been spectacular.
so living out in Tucson, all of a sudden, I found myself riding my mountain bike more, which then led me to get rid of my GT and buy a hard rock. A rock hopper, excuse me. And I did my first mountain bike race in Tucson, Arizona. And it was the hardest, most grueling race I've ever done in my life with a fixed fork. And I think I had like 4 flats during the race. And
Those darn thorns in Arizona.
Oh, and even the sand is tough.
Mm-hmm.
And I finished, and I thought to myself, well, this is my new sport. And I got into mountain biking, and I graduated from Arizona and moved back here, and I found myself doing mountain bike races. And then the next thing I knew, there were 2 kids that were in high school whose parents came up to me and said, "You're from Duxbury. My kids are really into this. It's hard for us to get our kids to races. Would you mind?"
Did you have a camper?
Oh, yeah, I had a 76 V-dub camper.
He's kind of like the
Would
guy
you
with the
mind
van you could transport.
Taking our kids to a race or
So,
two.
wait, did you know these parents? Or they just knew
no,
of
I
you?
Knew, well, one of the parents I
is a
kind
small
of knew
town.
because their daughter, now 46 years ago, we have a big picture of her eating ice cream on the deck.
Okay.
And so, it's a small town.
And you own
So-
an ice cream shop in town. So
Right,
it's not like
right,
you're
right.
just some weirdo with your
So
trailer
these-
and some bikes.
Yeah, and these kids, I was 22, 23, and these kids were 17. So, there was a difference, but not a huge difference.
Right.
And the next thing I know, all I was doing was riding both road and mountain bike with these 2 kids, and we were going all over New England racing. We were gone every weekend.
Wow.
racing.
Who are these children and where are they now?
Well, one of them is Matt's, and he lives up outside of Burlington.
Okay.
And the other one is Mike, and he lives in the same area. They're both St. Mike graduate kids. And
Okay.
Matt has still stayed into cycling and has a young son who's 13 or 14 and is becoming quite the racer himself and probably better than his old man. But we
The circle of
went
life.
everywhere. We went Mount Snow and
I was going to say, we probably, for all we know, you and I bumped into each other at the 96 Mount Snow Race.
We
Hated
probably
each
were
other.
standing next to
We're
each
like,
other
"This idiot."
At the Naked Crit.
Absolutely. Were you there when the guy proposed to his girlfriend and she was completely bare ass in front of everybody? Completely bare ass.
Yes.
On a knee.
Seriously,
Come to
like
find out,
we
she
were
was a
probably right
professional
next to each
dancer
other.
in New York City.
See, this is one of those destiny moments, right?
Right.
Like
It was.
your
I do
paths
feel
have
like
crossed
it.
so many times,
Yeah.
and it takes this many times before you meet.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So when does so you and Alex have known each other all your lives
14, since we were 14.
since you were 14. So you kind of knew some of this was going on.
No, I did not.
Oh, you weren't paying
No.
that much attention to him.
No, I was not.
She was busy being married.
That's
married,
right.
I
That's
had
right.
a
At
kid.
14. She was-
No, he was not riding bikes when he was 14.
No,
He was
that's right. You said it
mostly-
started-
I was
wait,
absolutely
wait.
riding bikes.
Hold on. The memory of Jason riding a bike was to come visit me when I was at my grandfather's house, and he would ride his bike with his cowboy boots on to my house.
Ooh.
Sorry, ladies, I'm taking.
I think,
I'm going to need photos.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
How cool
He
did you
has
think
the
you were with
claw
those
marks in
cowboy
the
boots
bottom
on
of
your?
I still think I was cool.
He said.
As a matter of fact, I had a groove in the bottom of the boots for my pedals.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So separated for
That
a
is
while,
pretty cool.
back together at like you were married, so you weren't riding.
Oh no, he was riding when we first.
I was riding
We're
a
dating
lot.
again.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but you weren't. You didn't ride.
So,
Okay.
So then I would come up on weekends to Ashland from Duxbury, and Alex became friendly with a guy because of daycare, and
And he kind of did the same thing to you. I was like,
we
oh,
had the-
my boyfriend
hey,
rides.
my boyfriend ride. Yeah, and the back and forth.
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, fine, I will ride with him. So he and I
Okay,
went out
fine.
riding one day, and the first thing he saw was my bike, and he was like, ooh, titanium. All right, Quattro Assi. Maybe it was a little too small for me, but it was titanium.
It was, right.
And he and I went out and rode, and then he would be, are you coming up this weekend? Coming up next weekend? When are we going to ride? When are we going to ride? We're going to ride both days? We're going to ride. And I rode with him, I don't know how many times. And then Alex, John Dillon, and I were at Home Depot,
Okay.
and all of a sudden, this guy and this woman and this kid the kid was in a stroller, and they're talking to me, I'm talking to them, and I have absolutely no idea who this guy is, because it's Mark Cedrone.
Okay.
He's not wearing a helmet.
So this was
He's
the-
not in his bike kit, and he's not wearing his bike glasses.
Okay.
Right. So there's no
That's
recognizing
how I
him.
knew Mark Cedrone
Sure.
for the
Right.
first 2 months.
Not in Lycra. Who are you?
Yeah, no,
Hey,
exactly.
what does your
I'm like,
hair
who
look
is this
like?
freakishly tall guy talking to me in Home Depot?
He is very
With this woman and this kid. I have no idea who this person is. And I was like, that's the guy you ride with. I was like, oh, okay. All right.
Oh, he seems nice. He's got hair. What is you know?
Yeah. It was like,
He has a whole face.
yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yeah,
A
pretty
whole
much all I
face.
saw of Mark was the ass end of him, because that's
Yes.
pretty much all I could do to keep up with him, was to be
And I
behind
did
him.
hear stories that like you and Mark would go out and it would just be days later before you
Oh,
came
well, the problem I
back.
had was not knowing the area at all.
Yes.
And Mark not understanding that I had commitments. We would be out riding, and I would remind him an hour into the ride that I had an hour left and I had to be back home. And he would say things to me like, uh-oh, we're currently in Rhode Island. I don't know how we're going to get back in time.
That was his strategy. Take him as far away from home, knowing he had to bike home.
Yes.
So that was it. Yeah.
Yes. But that's Mark.
That's Mark.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Mark would get mad at you because your equipment was so bad.
Yes, Mark would get very upset with me because my chain was squeaky, or maybe I had a flat tire, or I was not as anal with my things as he is.
Okay.
Bike maintenance isn't our favorite.
Bike maintenance, yeah.
Did you still
apparently-
struggle with the idea that air was free back then?
I did. I struggled.
He
with
still
that.
does,
Well,
yes. Yes.
apparently, did you know when you have a bicycle, you have a special adapter? You can't go to the gas station and put air in your tires. You have to
I've
have a
heard.
No, we're talking about you and your
Oh,
reluctance to put
Your
air in your
reluctance to
tire.
put air.
This one is actually about you.
Oh.
Like, oh no, they feel fine. They
Yeah,
are
they're
good
not
enough.
fine.
40 pounds. They still roll.
So when did you start? So you were athletic. That you're a runner.
She's a runner.
At the time, this
Yes.
was all going on. You were
So my
running.
cycling transportation is what bicycles are for, to get you from one place to another. You've
Okay.
got a bunch of baskets. You can pull someone on a skateboard. That's what bicycles are for. That's
Ride in the
great.
bushes.
on a skateboard.
All good
I
stuff.
like that.
You
Okay.
can ride down a big hill and crash into bushes. That's what, or make jumps. That's
Yes.
what a bicycle's for.
Okay.
And I did actually. I'm recalling that I did have one date when I had recently graduated from high school, where a guy was like, "You want to go for a bike ride?" And I was like, "Yes." And so I borrowed
So I
my
wasn't the
dad's.
first?
Nope. Borrowed my dad's 10-speed, and I followed him around for 17 miles. And I was like, "This is the worst date ever."
17 miles he took you on it. It was in
You
like
probably
a
had on
rail
underwear.
trail that we had.
That's
out.
actually a lot for somebody who's not a
Yep,
rider.
and on a bike that didn't fit them.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So, and definitely no Lycra. So I was
Yeah.
just like, this was a really bad date. I don't think we're going to do this again. So
Right.
that was my introduction to road cycling. And then
Stellar.
so then my little sister called me up and said, we don't get to do things together. We should sign up for a triathlon together. I said no, because I don't want to swim. I really am not a great swimmer. That seems like a stupid idea.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
really like to ride bikes. And then she said, please, please, please. And I said, fine. So we
Okay.
both signed up for a Danskin triathlon in 99.
Okay.
And we were dating. And so I started taking adult swimming lessons, thinking that was the biggest problem I had. Because I knew I could do the run wasn't going to be a problem, but surviving the swim felt like the biggest obstacle
Well,
to me.
The drowning's a real.
The drowning was really
real
bad,
issue.
really scary. And when I swam in the pool the first time, the instructor was like, "Oh, that was pretty." So I had a lot of work to do there, and I figured I had biked.
Yeah, but
I
swim's
biked
the
places.
shortest.
Like, how hard could the biking part be?
Okay.
And I don't even know what I had for a bike. I think I had my old
You
Trek.
had your Trek
I had my old
from
Trek
college.
From college. That got me.
760, 740.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Okay.
what got
Know
me
these
to work.
things.
That got me
Yeah,
to work.
okay.
And that was
Fortunately,
fine.
lifting it wasn't part of the event
Yes.
because she would have been flat on her ass.
I didn't have to carry it over any barriers. But then Jason was like, I think I can get you a Caloi mountain bike that was lighter or maybe had more speeds. I don't even remember what it was, but there was a reason, or maybe it fit me. I don't remember what it was, but we got that and
Checked
put slicks on.
A-box.
It checked a box, and that's
Those are
just what
knight
I
in shining
rode.
armor.
I don't know if we went out and did any. I don't think I trained.
No, you did not do a lot of bike riding.
I think I rode here one time and got a flat tire, and you came and got
I
me
had
in
to
a
come get
truck.
you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was
Yep.
it. I was like, this is
So
stupid.
that's 1999. Okay.
Yep. And I cried a lot, and I was very slow on the mountain bike compared to everybody else. It really turned out. So then somehow I got something that was more of a road bike for the next year when I did
You
the
got
same
your
race again.
Dad's old.
So
road
you
bike.
got through that and somehow decided to do it again?
She's a caney.
Yeah, it hurt awfully bad, but I also survived it. And then my sister said, "Wow, that looked really great. I will do it with you next year." And so I signed up for it again, trusting her that she would be there, and she was there the next year.
Okay, wait, you missed that part. So she
Oh,
got you
oh,
to
that's right.
sign up for the
Oh.
first year and then bail?
Yeah, she's like, "You know what? I'm not going to be there." I think she had an internship or she had something, and I was like, "But
She got you into it and then
And
bailed
so
on you.
still, but
Totally.
you still did it.
I
'cause
did.
You had spent
Okay.
the money.
I did.
and you had
He put a
taken the
balloon on
swim
my bike. He came.
classes.
Oh, he was great
Okay.
support.
I even made a T-shirt.
Where was it? Where was
Rentham.
It was in Rentham,
Okay.
Lake
Oh,
Pearl.
yeah, the Rentham one.
Yep.
Lake Pearl.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Beautiful course.
Oh,
Absolutely
okay.
gorgeous,
Gorgeous.
course.
Okay.
I quit
So
like
she-
7 times. So she didn't even show up, but I did it.
She comes out of the water. I have never seen a grumpier face in your life.
I'm
And I
genuinely
was like,
happy. I was not
I don't
happy.
know what's going to happen, and
gonna
maybe I can
kill
hide in the
somebody.
Like
woods.
stage one. This is like one.
This
It really
was not my idea.
No. And the biking was really hard, and it was
Okay.
like I'm like just watching everybody go past me. I'm like, I am definitely in better shape than this, but it was
Yes.
the shape
No,
that.
no,
Yep.
we need to back up.
Uh-oh.
Her father.
Oh, he had done an
20,
Ironman,
25
yeah.
years before that, had done an Ironman and came in like 5th place or something
Oh,
like that.
of course. Okay.
Really?
For
I
his
didn't know
age.
that.
Yeah, for his
Wow.
age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they
And
used to
he
bury
was
an
like from
Ironman down the
Wellesley to
Cape.
Duxbury and then back to Wellesley.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Things like that. So I'm just going to say maybe there was a little pressure in the back of the head, in the mind there.
I could see, but I could also
There was
see
family
you
history
like
there.
seeing bikes go fast. I remember doing my first triathlon, and I had a road bike.
Yep.
That's all I rode. So I had a road bike, and I remember passing hybrids who were pedaling downhill.
Yes.
And I was passing them without pedaling.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, they are working so hard.
Yes. I was working
so much
really,
harder
really
than
hard.
They need to be. Like, you're so strong. Good on you, man.
Yep.
You know you have to run.
I got a
after
great
this, right?
workout.
Yeah.
I got a great workout.
Okay. So next year you're.
So I did it again. I signed up with
Better bike.
Erica again, and she showed
Okay.
up. So I came into this reluctantly through triathlon, and I think you had given me a couple of like small routes to go out and do. And I was doing sprints, so they were like 10 or 11 miles.
But you were riding by yourself. You weren't riding with her.
Well,
You
because
were-
we
'Cause
had
we-
John
he was-
Dillon, so
That's
somebody was
right.
watching John
Okay.
Dillon.
Yeah, so
Yep.
we
Yep.
had to be dividing up
Yeah,
and conquering
divide and
here.
conquer.
Okay.
And yes, and actually because the Kaloi became the bike with the baby seat on it.
Correct.
That's how we. So anyhow,
Okay.
and I would come back from each ride, and I would just say to him, "I don't get it. I really don't understand this cycling shit. I know that you think it's great and you love it. I don't get it.
Really?
I don't. I just was like, it is the weirdest thing. Like, I'm going to do it because it's part of the race, but I just do not get this.
Do you
So then
find
you were
a
like-
lot of triathletes are that way?
That, yeah, I was going to
the
say
bike
most
is-
triathletes are like triathletes to me, and since I probably did the neutral support for 100 of them, they were either swimmers or runners, and the bike was just a necessary
It was the
evil.
thing in between. It was
Yes.
literally the
Yeah.
thing to get onto my bike, 100%. But I was just so used to the feeling of finishing a run. You know, and you just feel like total shit and you're just happy it's done, but you feel really good about
Yes.
it. I never felt that way. I'm like, it's too efficient. There's something about a cycling which is too efficient,
That's
and
what
I
I
do
like
not
about
hurt enough.
Okay.
And yeah, so I didn't get it. So So he'd be like, you want to go for a ride? Nope. I'm good
Yeah.
for a
So
very
it's just
long
training.
time. It was
just like
really
whatever
just
you had to do
the part
for
in the middle.
triathlon.
And then something, I can't remember what switch. I think maybe it
John
was,
Dillon got a little older, so he was on his own,
yep.
and you and I started riding together, and she would
Although
say,
I think Jackie and I started riding together before you and I started
Jackie
riding together.
Absolutely, because you were training, because Jackie was training for races up in like Sudbury and those smaller
Yep.
sprint races.
But we went out and rode our first 25 miler together, and then I was like, oh, I actually like cycling. It had to be longer and harder.
Yeah, longer and harder.
Was what my issue was.
Yeah.
And until then I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Okay, I get this now. And so that was the thing. I didn't like it until it hurt more.
Yes.
See, it's
And
just
you
like
got
the
no
sticker
sense.
I was making last night. I was making the sticker last night using
Yep.
the John F. Kennedy
Yeah.
quote, which is, we do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard.
Yep.
And you and I were like, was it difficult? And I was like, no, it's hard. It's that word, hard.
Isn't that unusual how athletes are like that? You do these
It's
big
not-
events that were very, very difficult, and you just are exhausted and spent
that's
at the
why-
end,
Then you're
and
like,
you're like,
that
yeah, I'm
was
coming back next
awesome.
year.
When's the next one?
That was-
Yeah,
that's
when's the next
why
one?
you
Next
do
one.
them.
Henry's the
I
next
did
weekend?
so
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah. No, it's
well,
that type 2
triathletes
fun.
aren't-
It's that type
they're
2
not a normal
fun.
group of people
Yeah.
anyway. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
But-
and I don't remember. I think I think part of it was also having a social system that then revolved around bikes, because I remember like these when you had once you got the bike shop and we were doing Nights of Sufferlandria videos
Yes.
together on the trainers. I was like, we're gonna be on a bicycle and train? Like, I don't understand. Like, you know, like
And social.
and social, and then it sort of just became its own
Well, like your tent.
beast. Oh,
Because you guys had a tent in your backyard.
We did.
yeah, we had a great tent in
And
our
I
backyard.
would come and we would get on the trainer.
Yep. Yep.
That's when I learned that hot flashes were like a mutant ability, because we would be in a tent freezing and
Yes.
she is steaming.
Yeah,
Her body is physically steaming.
Yeah, it was
Right?
I loved that tent. I loved biking because you could bike outside with a little protection. Oh, I loved that.
Yeah.
The tent
Yeah,
was
we'd
brilliant.
walk in the morning while
Right.
the kids are sound
This is not a
asleep.
camping tent. This is
No,
this
no,
is
no,
It's a
this
big-
is a,
It's
No,
a,
this is a-
it's a
14 by 20.
glamping.
yeah,
it's
a
a, it is
glamping
a
style
glamping tent,
yes.
fully framed.
Big
It was
white
actually
walls,
like
fully
the
framed.
type
Yep.
of tent I used to camp in at my summer camp, but you put like 10
Yes.
bunk beds in
Yes.
it. Like it was
That's
a
what it
big
is. Yeah.
camp,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
was
it's
kind of
14
one
by
of those.
20.
Yeah.
But we'd walk to it, which was, 50 feet from our house.
Okay.
And in our Crocs, because we had to bring the shoes in at night because they would be
Because
so
they would
cold if
freeze.
we left
Oh,
them in
they
the
were
tent
awful.
through a foot and a half of
You would
snow.
cry if you remembered
Yeah.
that you left your shoes out there. You'd be like, my shoes are in the tent.
So you guys are at this point really kind of cycling together, but also separately. Like you're doing
Well-
triathlon stuff. You're out there with Mark.
So
Yes.
I was, when we started dating again, the umpteenth time, I had been
It's a separate
I'd been
podcast.
seriously into mountain bike racing, and
Okay.
that was filling a void in my life. So I was racing every race I could find that was within, a 4-hour drive. And then she and I started dating, and the mountain bike racing wasn't as important to me, but cycling stayed important to me. So I was doing my road riding, thinking that I could bring her into mountain biking, and I quickly realized that wasn't going to happen.
Well, also, this is a shorter time frame because I did the triathlon in 99. Erica and I did it in 2000. We got married in 2000, so we were spending more than just the weekends together.
Yes.
So we had more time
Right.
available. So so we would ride together more. But we also, I think you bought your fancy new Giant. And I
My
was
cross
on.
bike.
Yeah, no, did you get the road bike? At some
I did. I
point
bought
you
a
got
Giant.
a road
yes,
bike.
because my Quattro Rossi was just.
And we were still
tough.
living under the rule of he's the better cyclist, he's the stronger cyclist.
Okay.
So he
And the one that
should
likes to
have the
cycle.
really nice bike, and I am fine on a shitty old heavy bike.
Oh, we had a whole podcast on this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we did that for
Interesting.
a while.
Yes.
Yeah, we did that
Yep.
for a while. And I remember, because I remember being behind you saying, like, wait a minute, shouldn't you be on a heavy bike? Because then wouldn't this make this even?
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
At the time.
yeah.
well,
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
we were at the theory of.
Yeah.
Is there
Maybe
gonna
it
be a
won't
tomorrow?
stick.
She gonna like
I think
or
it was-
is this thing going
I
to go back
know.
in the garage?
Yeah,
and
it
hang
was.
on its hooks?
I don't know if this is going to stick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But
right.
anyhow.
Had a whole show
And-
about
okay,
this,
and
Jason.
by the way, as
Yeah.
my friend Scott Soltowski says, I'm a unicorn because I'm the guy whose wife has more bikes than he does.
At this point.
Ooh,
Yes.
yeah, there is quite a collection down there.
There
I
is.
love it.
I know.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Okay, so when
Enough
did that
about that.
switch? When did that switch where you started to get Alex,
I
started to get
upgraded
nicer bikes?
To a newer bike, a better
Okay.
bike. I said to Alex, there was a Cannondale that was beautiful, and we were at that place where it's like, okay, we need to do something different for Alex. She needs to be on a better bike. Her bicycle is holding her back at this point in time, and so we went to the bicycle barn. It was a red barn somewhere. I forget where.
There was a bicycle
Could
barn.
be right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we went, and I forget where it was.
It's
but
on the
anyways,
Minuteman Trail, right?
So we went
the bike
up.
trail?
I had already looked at the TCR.
Oh, yes.
Mark Cedrone
It's
was
that one.
driving the
Yep.
exact same bike at the time. It was the same year and everything. It was like it'd been there on the floor for like 2 years. It was
Yep.
a great deal. So I'm going to buy that. Alex, you come up and you look at this bike that I think would be great for you. And it was beautiful, but it was too small for her. So it was like, okay, I'm here now. Let's start looking at other bikes.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, it was the first time that I had been on anything with carbon, and I was like,
well,
oh, wait a second. Wait a second. My back doesn't actually hurt when I'm riding this one. What do you have in my
Well,
size? Like,
so-
this is something magic.
So we were looking at bikes. He was the guy that was helping us. He was the owner of the shop. He was saying, yeah, this bike will fit you, but the stem is too small. So he would swap out the stem right
Yes.
then and there. And Alex was like, what's going on?
Magic.
Yeah. And then she rode one bike, and then she rode another bike. And I said to her, I think you should take out the carbon bike.
Mm.
And it was kind of rainy out. And she's like, no, I don't think so. I said, well, we're here. I think you should take it out. And she went out for her ride, and she was gone for quite a while, a lot longer than she usually was gone on the other bikes. And she came back, and it was something to the effect of, I can't believe it. You're actually right. Carbon is awesome.
You were
makes a
coming
big
off the
difference.
Cannondale?
No, I
You're-
didn't. Did I have a Cannondale? What was my dad's bike? I thought I had my dad's bike because we gave that.
You had a Fuji.
Yeah, at a
He had a
Fuji.
Fuji.
I mean, I was just gonna.
Steel.
I was just gonna say. Oh,
It was steel.
Oh, steel.
Steel.
So you went
Fuji.
from steel to carbon.
Yeah.
Oh,
She went
so
from
no,
steel
to
steel
carbon.
does ride quite nice. I was gonna say aluminum at that
Does.
time.
Well, hold on a
was
second.
Very
But it was
harsh.
steel. That was my dad's bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily didn't fit me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sure, okay.
And
so it
at-
really didn't
So
fit
there's
you.
at
many
the
things,
time-
but I didn't know. This bike just felt
Yeah.
nice.
So did
Anymore.
you start coming back to road riding as she started to
I had left mountain
triathlon?
biking,
Right.
racing.
Yep.
I found at the time that it was so much easier to get into road riding,
Yep.
and it was less amount of time. It wasn't as dirty. I didn't break as much stuff. The people I were riding with were kind of more roadies than they were mountain bikers. So, and I think my mountain bike broke.
I have a memory check that I need to
Okay.
check in with. Did I sign up for an Xterra triathlon?
Well, you did the one in Hopkinton.
So
Yes.
okay. I really liked the Pathfinder, and it was an Xterra, so I think that's how I wound up.
Yes.
But I also like to run trails, so I thought, well, if I like to run trails, how hard could it be to ride a bike? So anyhow,
Yes.
I do recall we did take a one practice ride around
the
res before the race. Is that
yes,
right?
Yes, we did. Yes, we went the day before.
And we ran into somebody, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is.
So we're at the finish line. They're setting up the tents and stuff like that. I think we're there the day before.
Yeah, we were pre-riding.
And because it was right down the street from the house,
Yep.
we rode there. We did it. And there's this guy walking around. He's doing some stuff. And as my wife does very well, starts talking to him. And she says, have you ridden the course? And he says, yes, I have. She said, something along the line of, it's kind of technical, and there's a section over here, and this section.
I think I was like, it was really technical.
Really technical.
I think I was
like that.
almost crying.
And I'm looking at the guy, and I'm going, I have posters of this guy. Okay. And I'm just going to give you a little brief description of this guy, and maybe you'll know who it was. He had a mole on his face.
Ned Overend?
Yes.
Oh my God. That's all you needed to know.
I'm in the background going,
I have no idea who that is.
It's Ned. Oh my God.
I
And
was
my
just
wife
making
is giving
friends.
him pointers. And you know what Ned said?
Wait,
Ned's
no,
giving
hold
the
on,
pointer.
wait.
Good.
I was
You know what?
not
Alex is
giving
giving
him
Ned
pointers
pointers.
because I did not do a good job
That's
then.
true.
I
That's
was
true.
not giving him
But she's
pointers.
explaining
But I
it.
was just talking to him about my experience.
By
and
the
like
way-
he was just like me.
He was being so
He was
nice
so
to her.
nice.
He
I
was
would say,
just
by
so
the way,
nice.
it's about time some man got some woman splained. I am for it.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
a good story.
So she and I are riding home, and I'm like, that was the Michael Jordan of mountain biking.
Like,
right?
nope.
Of course
Like,
I don't.
Nope, I do
Why
not.
would I know that?
But he was really nice. But why I signed up for it, that was the silly
'Cause it was
part.
in our
the silly part.
backyard.
Okay, so
I'm very good at signing up for things.
when did you, Jason, get into cyclocross? How did you even know that was a thing?
Okay, so
Okay.
There's going to be a story.
back
Well,
in the
that's
day,
why we're here.
There's always
the
a story.
first team I ever rode for was a team called Fat Dog.
Okay.
There was Fat Dog Racing. There was a team. It was
it was a shop in Westwood, right?
before that.
Yeah.
It was in Carver,
Oh, okay. Yes.
and
I remember that.
there were these two local guys that had ridden a couple of times, and their last name was McCormick.
Oh, of course.
And then there was another guy.
I've heard that name before. Even I know that.
Brian. I'm spacing Brian's name, who now owns. What is it? It's got three initials.
JRA. Oh, Brian. Yes, Brian.
Yeah. And a couple of other guys, and I was mountain bike racing with them.
Okay.
I was on the same course as them, and they had said to me, "Hey, you ought to try this. There's this thing called cyclocross. It's up at Fort Devens. You should come up and do it."
Okay.
And I said, "Okay, what the heck?" So I think I threw together some jalopy of a bike and went up to Fort Devens. I'm pretty sure they were flat bars and everything, and did a course up in Fort Devens that was just insane. And I said, yeah, I don't know about this thing. So I didn't do it anymore. I walked away from it, and I was riding a lot with Mark at the time, who told me that I needed to get a winter bike because you don't want to beat up your nice road bike in the wintertime, because we are riding, there's snow on the ground. Mark has got me out there riding the whole time.
Cedrone.
Cedrone.
So
Yes. The tall guy he didn't know at Home Depot.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a very good friend who had a bike shop here in Duxbury, and I went to him and we talked about things, and I bought a steel Fuji cyclocross bike. And Mark and I were riding it, and I'd signed up to do Fort Devens again because now I had the cyclocross bike, so now I was going to do much better. And I think I was sick, so I couldn't go do the race. So the next race that came available was Ice Weasels, when it was in Rentham at the farm.
Yes. Yep.
And at the time, I really didn't know a lot of people that were racing, except for my friend Arnold, who is a beast on a bike, and he had a Pugsley Iditarod. So it is freezing. It is ice everywhere.
I mean,
So
it's in
we
the
get into
name.
the bell goes off. We get into the first turn, and I wipe out. And by the time I can cross the course to get where my bike is, the entire race went past me, And I got back on my bike, and I essentially rode as hard and as fast as I could so that nobody would pass me.
Right. She didn't want to be last.
Because there weren't a lot of cyclocross bikes at that point in time.
No.
So I'm trying to stay ahead of the guys on the mountain bikes who had stud tires and things like that. So I got over it, and then I remember there was a field across the way, and I probably spent the next 45 minutes pulling people out of the field because they were all stuck in the field because they were in their two-wheel drive, whatever. And I remember driving back to Ashland thinking, well, that was fun.
So dumb.
Try explaining that to someone who doesn't like to ride on anything but road. Like, that was fun.
So
Like, you came home and had to explain.
Covered in mud, freezing.
You're going to do it again?
Yeah, so I'm going to do it again. In the whole atmosphere. I mean, it was a weasels race,
Well, yeah, Ice Weasels was that still at the end of the, like, Ice Weasels
I
is
think it
now
was
at
at
the
the
end of
end.
the season. It's
You know,
kind of like the end of the year party for New England cyclocross.
It was, Rentham was so close. It was like, how do you not do it?
Yeah.
I'm sure there were other races, but they were all over the place. But before that, I remember thinking I had kind of gotten out of biking and kind of walked away from it. And I remember I was flying home from Colorado. I had been snowboarding, and there on the plane is Mark McCormick, and I'm like, "What are you doing here, Mark? What's going on?" And he saw I was out here doing a race. I said, What race? Oh, I was doing a cyclocross race. Oh, okay. I said, all the way out here? What? He said, well, it was nationals. I said, oh, really? I said, well, how'd you do? Well, it's a good course. It was muddy and it was rocky. Oh, yeah, okay. He's telling me all about it. I said, well, but how did you do, Mark? I mean, Mark McCormick, the guy walked on water around here. Now he's going out into the real world. Well, I mean, it was 15 minutes. Me saying, how'd you do? Well, yeah, I won. Oh, okay, so what does that mean? Well, I'm going over to Europe next to compete with the Europeans. Like, okay. So, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so I kind of was like, okay, maybe this is something. And Mark had gotten kind of into cyclocross, and it was one of those events where no matter how much you trained and how much you rode, no matter how hard you went out, you were essentially just trying to be a little bit better than how you started the race. Yes. And that was a success for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had a very successful mountain biking career at my level and my age, and I was getting my ass handed to me in cyclocross. I mean,
so you're like,
and that was fun.
I'm gonna pay money for this.
When's the next race?
Yep.
And of course, it was the bike that was holding me back. So then I bought another bike, and I didn't do much better. So then that bike was definitely holding me back. So I bought another bike,
Okay.
but this time I did not get one with disc brakes because they're a fad. They weren't going to last.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I got a nice bike with rim, and it wasn't the bike that was holding me back.
Right.
It was my fat ass that was holding me back. So, but that's when we were starting to hang out together, and we were starting to do cyclocross.
So how many years did you do cyclocross before?
I'd
you
probably
dragged Steve
not
into it?
serious. Like when Steve and I started racing is when I really got into it.
Oh, okay.
But prior
Just 'cause
to
of the
that,
skin
it'd
suits.
probably been off and on for three years.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we
But
were doing.
Devon's was earlier, and you were in Colorado much earlier. That was
Right.
before we got
Devon's
married.
was no, but I hadn't.
But then there was a break.
Yeah, then there was a
Between
break.
Yeah, then you would go to Gloucester and like Weasels.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And drive around and
Yeah.
do.
So I
So
think the kids were little.
Yeah, the kids were really little, and my mountain bike had broke. So, and I sent it off, and it got rebuilt, and then I just never got around to rebuilding it.
So when you started cyclocross, is that like the first time you guys were riding together that
No,
regularly?
no.
Like
we
were
would road.
competing
No, 'cause they
together?
road riding.
Never,
Yes.
never
You had
competed.
never
Although
competed.
we did get you to do one triathlon. You did.
I did a couple.
You did some
I
of
did
the
one
sprints.
here, and I did
And we did the
Sudbury a
Blockbuster
couple
and
of
stuff like that.
times.
But
Yeah.
no. So I started riding more. I realized when I was doing triathlon that if I wanted to be on a podium, I did have to practice the bicycle part because it was the longest part of the and I really liked
Yes.
it. So we did mostly road riding.
We did a lot of
We did a
road
lot of
riding.
road
Yeah,
riding.
and
Yeah.
finding courses together, and
Yep.
because that was Map My Ride or MapQuest. I forget what it was.
It was Map My Ride before really Ride with GPS.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
That was sort of the original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I
Ish.
remember coming down here, and I learned. See, I'm not being a cyclist. There's hilarious things I've learned because he would give me routes, but he doesn't know the name of any streets. He only knows like where his third grade teacher lived, and to take a left after that.
Well,
So,
and then
so those were really challenging. And then I can remember like he took me on a really long ride, and I came back, and I had this thing like Hill Street was such a climb. He's like, "Do you not know that everything named Hill Street is a hill?" I'm like, "No." Mountain also?
true.
Yes. Oh, I had no clue whatsoever. I don't know. I'm just gonna. He said take a mountain. Fine.
Right.
Yeah. All
This
things I
is
learned.
true.
Yeah. Like wow.
you also learn it's easier to make right-hand turns on a when riding. So
Well, I
Oh,
think
yes, like
so.
a
That was the
course.
transition. That was so. I think why I was such an awful cyclocross racer is because I became. My legs were very strong. I had a lot of power,
Yep.
but I could ride on very smooth pavement straight, and I can make really good right turns because I was just focused on sort of efficient routes and triathlon. So cyclocross wasn't
Oh.
any of that.
Mhm.
And yet you still kicked my ass regularly. Because you were, especially on the power courses. If we had a
Those
more
were my
technical
favorite.
course,
Oh,
I
yeah.
I had the upper hand.
But
And
after a couple of years, I stopped crying.
if it was just, yes,
That
if
was
you
good.
just had grass,
Yeah.
it was one of those courses I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Alex is going to
yeah.
take me out. So as you got more involved in cycling, did you find you had to have some like couples rules for your set? Like we've had
Oh.
to develop some rules because as I got more serious,
Yep.
he couldn't say just take parts off of my bike with the expectation I wasn't going to use it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues that we had for a bit when I was doing triathlon is I would go back and forth. Like we would ride road together, so I would be on a road bike,
Yeah.
or if I went out by myself, I would then switch to my tri bike. And there were times when I was in tears because of the kids that you had this tiny, tiny window to go out.
Yes.
And I could not get my pedals off my bike because he's like, I didn't put them on that tight. I'd be like, for you.
we didn't really have a pedal wrench. We had a wrench that I had grind down to fit. So
That sounds appropriate.
And
for you.
never
Yeah.
occurred to you to just buy another pair of pedals?
it wasn't long.
Well, we still weren't sure it was going to stick.
yeah.
No, that happens.
Right?
You
You
think,
know-
oh, it's not a big
Well, wait,
deal
wait,
to
wait,
move
wait,
the pedals
wait.
back and forth,
but-
and then you realize sort of.
But hold on, says the woman, didn't I have to bring you some pedals
Yeah,
one
no,
time because you
that's
didn't
where,
have a pair of pedals?
where I finally, so where the lesson came was because you and I were supposed to go for a ride, or was I just going for a ride and I just called you because I was crying? But I had the window.
tears in cycling.
I pulled my bike off, and I
there-
realized there were no pedals.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that there were no pedals; they were just over there. They were gone. They
Yeah.
were at the
They were,
shop.
like,
They
in
had
the
been
car.
disappeared or
Yes.
something. And that's when we had the come to you know who, where I had to say, you cannot take parts off of my bike.
Yep.
You cannot take things off of my bicycle because I need to be able to use it at any
Right.
Any given time.
At any given time. I also have another rule, which is he can't put my bikes on the ceiling of the garage because that's like 2 stories. So I have to get up on a bucket
Right.
to get it. And I'm like, no, my bike needs
bucket,
to
a
be
ladder.
within reach. No, you had an oil bucket that you used. It was like the perfect height for me to be able to. And
She
it was
meant
heavy
bucket.
enough that I wouldn't fall off of
Apparently, a
it.
bucket.
But yeah, you had to have.
Yeah.
But then my new thing over the years, I've been like, we should just have 2. Like,
Oh,
why
yes.
do I
Oh,
have
yeah.
to keep moving my supplies from one? I'll just have 2 sets.
Yeah,
I'll
I-
have 2 wrenches. I'll have
No,
2
and I think that yeah, I don't know why there was only one set of pedals. They may have been really light and very expensive, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I hadn't found
probably.
eBay at that point in time.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly why, but there was a reason. But that was honestly that was the one that I can actually remember, like just being like reduced to tears, like as you watched the window go by, and it's like I'm not
yes.
going for a ride because I can't get whatever it was
Can't
in.
get the frigate because they're also they're reverse threaded.
Right.
There's a reason why I have never ridden a full suspension mountain bike or a triathlon bike, of which my wife has both. And that's because in order for me to ride it, things have to get a little different. I have to raise the seat, whatever. And they are dialed into her. And
Well,
if
they're her
I,
bikes.
Mm.
Oh,
If
you
I
mean you
move
don't
it-
borrow her
if
bike?
I move
Right,
it,
right.
if I even look at moving it, she knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's like, ooh,
So,
what did you do?
It's just better for me to just leave it alone.
I think so. Where we are now.
Yes. Where are you now?
Where are we now? So
Do we have
J-
bikes?
we have bikes, but so it's a request. Like, so Jason's very good about fixing things and helping,
Yes.
but he also only does it if I ask.
Okay.
He's not like, I went down and I did da 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 da. But
Yes.
it's the like, did I ask for
I'm
you to
doing it with
change the
trembling
pedals
hands.
off or not? Right. So that's when it's like, so he is he knows much more still about the mechanics than I do.
Yep.
I think so. But if I make a request for help, then we can help. But
Yes.
unsolicited helping, no.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Well, I remember being
And
the
lubed.
reality of my cycling and Alex's cycling is when I had been doing cross, you and I had been doing cross. Kristin and Alex hadn't been doing cross. They then started doing cross.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
was the first year. And you and I went down to the race that they used to have in Rhode Island.
Providence.
Providence?
Providence.
Oh, Providence.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which was
is
awesome.
a beautiful race.
Yep.
And I'm
That was
standing in
awesome.
line at the taco truck
Yep.
to get lunch because I had just raced and, had done poorly, but better than where I started, so it was a success.
Right.
And there were a number of women behind me, and one of them asked me, "Oh, what do you think about this race?" And I said, "Well, I've done it before, and I like the race." And we got talking, and I said, "Oh, my wife wasn't able to do this race, and I don't remember why. But
Right.
she didn't do that race."
I think it was having the kid.
Okay.
It might have been something.
And
I was there, but you
what's-
weren't.
You weren't, yeah.
What? Yes, you were there.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
what really stinks is she did a race. She did the Weasel.
Midnight Ride.
Midnight Ride.
Yep.
And she had a really good time. And she got to ride with Helen. And she finished her lap with Helen Wyman. And they looked at me and they said, "Are you married to Alex?" I've never seen these women before. I've never talked to these women. I've seen these women.
Yes.
And I said, "Yeah." And the woman turns to the other woman and says, "He's Alex's husband." And they were like passing it down the line. And I'm going, okay. So I've been doing this how many years? And nobody knows who I am. I'm just some
He's just some dude.
I'm the $40, right?
Yeah.
That's all
right.
I am.
Right.
They do now. You're Alex's husband.
And now I'm Alex's husband.
You're
One
married
race.
to the luckiest woman in
One
cyclocross.
race. And I'm now Alex's husband. Yeah. And that's where I was like, okay, that's where I'm at.
Well, to give that some context, we had taken this class with Helen Wyman. We then did the midnight ride of cyclocross, and Helen.
Yelled at
I
my
was
wife.
very, 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 very
You were
last.
Very, 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 very last. And
Very
so Helen
last.
actually jumped on the. Didn't she jump on
No,
the
she
first
was
ride with
no.
you?
So
Or
the,
she
no,
just-
the pros raced with the Cat 4, right?
Okay,
so
right.
everybody was on the course, and she was coming up on my wheel to finish.
Yes.
And she had been training me for 2 days, so she knew a lot of my issues already. She just started screaming at me to pedal faster.
Right.
Pedal faster. Do not let me catch you. And I was
Yes.
like, ah! And so I did.
Yes.
And then she stayed on the course, and she said, just grab my wheel.
Yes.
And I rode an entire lap.
Her
of
cool down lap.
her cool
and
down
Alex's
lap,
last lap.
and I
which
was
was her
it
fastest
was my
lap of the
fastest
night.
lap.
Yep.
But I rode on her wheel the entire time, and it was the best lap ever. I was
It
like,
was like covered throughout New England cyclocross as
Yep.
you being the luckiest woman in cyclocross.
Yes.
You made a T-shirt for it.
I
But
did.
it was heavily covered. You know, one of the things I loved about
That's a good story.
cyclocross was like the fun, those moments where
Yes.
I remember you and we were at one race. I will not remember what it was, and I got lapped on the line. But
it was
Right.
Canton. I got
Canton.
lapped on the line, but I didn't know for sure if I had been lapped. Right.
I think you had snuck a. Didn't you
It was
sneak
right-
really? Weren't
was
you
right
just
at the
in
line.
front?
I was
I
right
think
at
you
the
were-
line.
yes.
I think it depended
And
on what
so
side you were standing on.
Yeah.
Right. So
but they didn't tell you to stop.
They didn't tell me to stop. But pre-ride I started hiding. So you followed me.
Right, I
the
was
whole
pre-riding.
time, and you were yelling at people to get out of my way because I was still racing.
Yep.
And it was just like just a
cool.
moment.
I do remember that.
Like
It was
just a
Canton.
moment.
It was
yeah.
Canton.
Like I remember being like, "Oh, Jason's got my back."
That's when I realized
I don't know what's
you
happening.
need 2 bikes for this event.
Yeah.
I got to get me another bike.
Exactly. No. So where are you as we wrap
Yep.
up? Although we could talk to you all day about this. Where are you today with your cycling?
Oh. We have a lot of dusty bikes in the basement
Yes.
right now.
We're gonna go dust. one
Anybody
off
want a
your-
road bike?
Yeah. No, I very much like cycling, so I haven't gone back to I only want to run.
Yep.
I like to gravel. Gravel is my preference.
Okay.
I don't like I loved the distance you could cover and the power of road riding, but I don't love cars.
Yeah.
They really bum me out. And so pretty much we have our beach road, and it's like maybe 12 miles if we do the part that we can do, and we pretty much go out and we ride for an hour.
15 in.
Yeah, but we ride for an hour and 15 minutes on the beautiful beach. We're not hammering, and if we are, you can't tell by looking at us. Oh my gosh, actually, so we hadn't been on our bikes for a whole year. We were out on our gravel bikes, and a guy on a mountain bike was like, "Whoa, those are real gravel bikes." We're like, "Yes, they are." He goes,
Wearing
he's
a
like-
full-face motorcycle helmet.
Yeah, he's like, "Okay, let's see what you got. Let's race." I'm like, "No." There was a day, yes, but no, we're not doing that. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. We're pedaling around. There's a fitness component of it, and really, I also still love to run, but I like the amount of things I can see on a bicycle. Like, so I can see like 4 miles worth of things on a run.
Yeah.
But I can see like 12 miles worth of things on a bike ride. So that's where
So
I'm
maybe
at.
it doesn't have to be. Now you have an appreciation you didn't have at the beginning.
And
Where you said it had to be
100%.
hard,
It doesn't
but now
have,
it doesn't
no,
have to be hard.
100%.
Yes.
As a
You
matter
found the
of
joy.
so as a matter of fact, it's come full circle.
Okay.
So if I have been recovering from surgery, let's say, or something that I've taken a break from fitness,
Yeah.
I actually prefer cycling because I can get a great workout and it's not too hard on my body. So here we are,
And here we are.
And we still ride on the trainers.
and we still ride
And
on our
now wait,
trainers.
you have a cargo e-bike, which brings us ice cream. So I
True.
mean, there you
True.
go. That's an important
True.
ride aspect right there.
True,
for
my
us.
wrist is getting a hell of a workout.
I feel like it speaks to the fact that bikes can be so many things.
Yes.
And you can always come back to bikes,
Yes.
right? Like I don't run anymore, and I don't see myself taking up running. It hurts my back. It hurts my knees. But I don't see myself ever not riding. I may take breaks.
Yep.
But like riding can be all those things.
yeah.
I definitely still, so like when Jason and I, like the first couple of nice days when we're out, especially at night when the things are twinkling, like I will still be bicycling along and then think to myself, yay bikes.
Yay, bikes. It's our unofficial motto.
Exactly. And I definitely, I'm 100% in yay bikes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I miss at the end of our cyclocross the competitiveness that was just absolutely silliness.
Yes.
Looking up ahead and seeing Jeff Diefenbach and trying to do everything I can to just close the gap a little bit.
He's still doing it. You want to rejoin? He'll let you
And
follow
getting,
his butt
getting to
as
the
long.
end and Jeff saying to me, "Yeah, I knew you were behind me, and I knew you were chasing me, and I gave it everything I could to keep ahead of you." And at the end of the day, we weren't even getting T-shirts, you know.
Oh,
And we were just being
No
funny and
participation,
silly
yes.
and goofy, and there were other people that that were part of it. And then I remember going to the race in Hartford, and the Velo 545 had a tent there.
Yes.
And they said, "Hey, come hang out at our tent. You're
Yep.
not one of us, but you're one of
But
us.
you're one of
So
us."
just come hang out with us." And just getting to the top of the hill and looking at, Jim Godby, getting off his bike, sitting down, and going down, holding his bike, and going down the hill on his ass, and saying,
I remember watching the footage of that. Like,
Damn.
oh my
Yes,
gosh,
that's
there's
right.
"Damn,
Jason.
he's fast on
Yeah.
his ass."
It was frozen mud, right?
Oh, no,
Like
it wasn't-
No, it wasn't
that day.
frozen.
It was
No,
just
it was
mud
not
that
frozen.
day.
It was
Okay,
just
yeah.
mud.
That course changed every single day
Yeah.
of that
Oh.
event.
It
Edge
was
course
in-
changed
yeah.
every lap.
Yeah.
I know.
But it really
Yeah.
speaks to it's more than just about the bike, right? Like it was all
And
about
getting
the
back to the tent
experience
and laughing our asses off,
Yes.
and we all wishing we did better, but knowing we
It
did
also
the
didn't
best.
matter
We did the
at
best we
all.
did. Nobody broke anything.
Yep.
We all get to go to work the next day.
Yep.
And we're not going to go buy new components because we snapped something or whatever. And just,
Well,
being
they're
funny.
still out there, man.
They are
when
still
you
out
are
there.
ready and you're ready to cat into the next age group, they'll be there waiting for you.
God.
All right. Well, we should wrap this up.
This
But
is
thank
long,
you for
yeah.
coming on our show and joining us. And
It's
we have a
been
choice?
so nice cycling
you really
together
didn't.
with
All right.
you.
You really didn't. All right. All right, we're back. This is going to be a super long show, and I'm okay with that. We only do it every 2 weeks, and Alex and Jason are worth it.
Yeah, that was a fun catching up on memories with
I know.
all the things
It's
we've done.
amazing how mushy they get, and again, all the people we've met in the various ways. It's fun to reminisce. I do miss it. I'm with Jason. I miss elements of it. I don't miss my heart exploding, but I do miss the chaos and the silliness. So here's what we want to talk about before we wrap up, which is our e-bikes going to destroy the Strava KOM QOM system.
This has been a long-term problem, but it has only really started to be a real problem, I think, because of the widespread adoption of e-bikes.
Right.
So it was probably a decade ago when I started testing e-bikes at Interbike, and so these were the new novel thing.
Yeah.
And we would take them out, and this was in Boulder City, was the outer bike portion where we'd take them out on the courses, and I'd come back, and it would be like, oh, you just got the KOM. And at the time, there was no classification of an e-bike, and Strava didn't say, was this an e-bike ride? You know, like it sometimes does. And so, in some cases, I want to say I made the ride private so that it would then take me and my KOM away. But that was sort of the beginning of it.
And it's funny because I have had a couple of my QOMs taken away from someone I know is on an e-bike, and I know it doesn't mean to take them. They're just not classifying them correctly. And part of me thinks, oh, just get over yourself. You're fine, Kristin. Like you.
Right. What does it really matter?
What does it matter? Really matter. But like I saw one was stolen from a teenage girl that probably worked hard to get that QOM. You know, she's super fast, and someone who I know is on an e-bike inadvertently took it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I do think, if we're not careful as e-bike riders, if we're not careful, then it is going to kind of destroy the system. And it's easily rectifiable, right? Like, so if you're on an e-bike, you do an e-bike ride.
Yep.
You can
classify it as such.
Right.
And so as I was saying, a lot of times when I get done with a ride, it will ask me, was that an e-bike ride? Now, I don't know if that because in some cases I'm like maybe top 10%, and so it's just making sure.
I'm going to say yes because I am never asked that.
Oh, I'm asked that all the time. And so I think that must be what it is. Maybe it's when you're in like the upper percentage of a lot of the segments. It's just sort of confirming were you on an e-bike or not.
And maybe as a woman at the KOM, because even if I take the QOM, I'm usually middle of the pack on the KOM,
Sure,
right? On the all.
Yeah.
So that would put me outside of is this an e-bike ride? Oh, that's interesting that you get asked that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, it's easy enough. And I guess our ask would be, if you're on an e-bike, please try to classify and you can do this automatically. If you have a Garmin, you can have it set, right? To automatically classify your rides as e-bikes when they come in. Maybe?
Yeah, correct. There's a way now,
Maybe.
This is a fairly recent feature, maybe within the past year, where it will automatically default to a certain bike in my list of bikes, depending on what kind of ride it was.
Yeah.
And so for some people now, it should be defaulting to your e-bike. But whether it's your e-bike in your garage list, I don't know if that automatically classifies it as an e-bike. So that's...
Well, it's on us not to destroy the KOM, QOM. It is kind of fun, I will say.
Correct.
It is satisfying.
Well, it's beyond that.
It's
It's even top 10. It's just the general classification
I know.
on
But it's
Strava, which some people really like.
Exactly. As someone who's not that, I'm semi-competitive, but certainly not competitive. If somebody steals a QOM from me, I'm not going to go out and try to get it again. But I will admit it's very satisfying to come in from a ride and have it say, hey, you were one of the top 5 or you got a QOM. It's a nice piece of information. So if we want to protect it, we have to play by the rules.
Right.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap this very long show up. Thank you so much to Alex and Jason for coming on and sharing their experiences and, again, letting us camp in their front yard. Cycling Together with Kristin and Steve is a production of Steve the Bike Guy, an independent bicycle shop in Eastern Massachusetts, and Sundin Marketing.
If you like the show, please leave a review and share with a friend. For show notes, links, or to leave a comment, question, or topic suggestion, please visit cyclingtogether.bike. And you can follow the Bike Shop on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Steve the Bike Guy.
Thank you for joining the ride.
Okay, see you next time.